In this video, I'm going to talk about the first essay requirements and then the corresponding assignments related to this assignment. This first essay, I am asking you to write a personal narration in which you're just writing about your own experiences that specifically are related to a place in nature in Hawaii that's meaningful to you. So you can write about any place on any of the islands. It does not have to be on this island, but I do ask that you write about somewhere in Hawaii, one of the Hawaiian islands. Please share your personal connection to the place. And additionally, please share the geographic location and any names associated with the place. I do want you to use the Hawaiian name if there is one, and then also a description in which you talk about at least one natural characteristic about the place. So really just describing what it looks like. For this essay too, I strongly suggest that you tap into your senses. So going beyond just a physical description, you could add things like what do you hear? What do you smell? What tastes are associated with this place? So again, tapping into all of your five senses, I think you will find helpful as you approach writing this type of essay. Some additional considerations you may want to add, but you don't have to, include these bulleted points. So how has the place influenced your outlook on life and your personal growth? What is a specific childhood memory that you have associated with the place? A special occasion or an event that occurred at the place? And what should other people know about this place? So this is the topic, and these are just the requirements for the essay. So we're using MLA format. I do have a template for you to use when you get into writing the rough draft. So don't worry too much about MLA format if you're unfamiliar with it. But just the basics are that this essay will be double spaced. We're using a readable font. I like Arial. A lot of people use Times New Roman, which is fine as well. The size should be 11 or 12, so no smaller than 11, no larger than 12, 5 to 6 pages. And because this is a personal reflection or narration essay, you don't have to include a works cited page. You don't have to do any kind of research or use outside sources. And then this is a link to the rubric that will show how I am going to grade your essay. And just keep in mind that grammar and mechanics are on the rubric, but they don't factor into your overall grade for your essay. The next part of this is going into the creating thesis and outline assignment. And this is going to help you get started with writing this essay. So your thesis statement is the foundation of your essay. It's going to introduce the topic as well as the point, the general or overall point you're making about your topic. It should be just 1 to 2 sentences. And we want to try to dig deep and write something that's not obvious. So going beyond the obvious and making a statement that's a little more impactful or meaningful. For this first essay, we're just getting started, so don't worry too much about that. To help you get started creating your thesis statement, please answer these 2 questions. Firstly, who or what is your subject? That is going to be the place that you're writing about. And what point do you want to make about your subject? So going back to the essay number 1 requirements, thinking about something like maybe you want to mention that this place has been influential in your own personal growth, or it holds really special memories for you. Something along those lines in these bulleted points, I think will help you in creating your thesis statement. After you have your thesis statement, and remember again, it's just 1 to 2 sentences typically, you'll take your thesis and put it into a question. So using your question words like who, what, when, where, why, and how, in what way. These are helpful to just create a general question for your thesis statement. The idea is that the answers to your question are going to become your supporting points in your essay. You don't have to have 4 supporting points. This is just a template or an example. You can have fewer points and really get into great detail in those, or have more points and write a little bit less. But I do encourage you when you get into this section to again go back to the essay number 1 requirements and keep in mind that in addition to answering your thesis statement, you do need to include this information. So where geographically is the place located? A description of the place, and then definitely getting into the more general ideas about answering that question related to your thesis statement. So if you said something, for example, about the place being impactful or transformative to your personal growth, you could list, just kind of briefly getting started, a description of the place, and then how more specifically that place was transformational to you. And in this section, these answers are going to be brief. They're really just to help you think about these supporting points you want to make. And then in the next section, where we have our specific examples, this is where you provide detailed information that ties back to this information. For example, if you mentioned a specific event or a childhood memory, maybe you just, have something general here like fond childhood memories. Down here, you would want to list at least one specific childhood memory. Like, this is the first time I went camping at Kalai or South Point, and I went fishing and I caught whatever fish you caught. But something specific that goes in this section. So again, these are more general or broad points. And then below, this is where you write something very specific about those points. And then in the conclusion, for now, you could just write something short, thinking about how you're going to wrap up your essay. And I encourage you to move beyond simply just restating or recapping what you said in the supporting points, and trying to leave something a little more impactful for your readers as you finish up your essay. So that's just a quick overview of this creating thesis and outline assignment. After that, when you get to the rough draft, this is a template that I mentioned. So you're going to just populate this information with your own specific information. For example, where it says your last name, you'll take that out and actually write your own last name. And the same goes throughout here. So your name goes here, the due date of the paper will go here, and then please add your own title. And keep in mind that titles are actually part of your essay. So you want to write something more creative than essay number 1. So then you can just jump in and write your essay, but everything is formatted for you in MLA format. Just some reminders. This first paragraph will be your introduction. And please don't start your essay with your thesis statement. Please introduce your topic, build up to it, reviewing those points that we made or that I shared with you in the first module about how to write an introduction, and just keeping in mind that you're going to try to somehow introduce your topic in an impactful way, an interesting way, and then build up to your thesis statement. So the thesis should be near or at the end of your introduction. From there, you'll move into your supporting paragraphs. with all of the points that you want to make that tie back to your thesis statement. And again, remember to go back to the essay requirements, keeping in mind that you need to include all of this information. So in some way, make sure you've included this information in your rough draft. And then also going back to the creating a thesis and outline assignment, that is meant to guide you as you write your rough draft. And then the conclusion to wrap everything up. I will provide specific feedback on the creating thesis and outline and the rough draft assignments. And then you will also have peer reviews with your peers to give you more information about revising and whatnot your essay before you turn in the final draft. Mahalo.